Okay, so what's the convention over configuration? That's a big one.
That's a big one. That's a huge one. And it was born out of a frustration I had in the early days with especially Java frameworks, where when you were setting up a web application framework for Java back in the day, it was not uncommon to literally write hundreds, if not thousands of lines of XML configuration files. Oh, I need this. I want the database to use the foreign keys as post_ID. No. I want it as post capital ID. Oh, no. You have to do it capital PID. There are all these ways where you can configure how foreign relation keys should work in a database, and none of them matter. We just need to pick one, and then that's fine. And if we pick one and we can depend on it, it becomes a convention. And if it's a convention, we don't have to configure it. And if we don't have to configure it, you can get started with what you actually care about much quicker. So convention over configuration is essentially to take that idea that the system should come pre-assembled. I'm not just handing you a bunch of fucking Legos and asking you to build the Millennium Falcon. I'm giving you a finished toy. You can edit, you can change it. It's still built out of Legos. You can still take some pieces off and put in some other pieces, but I'm giving you the final product. And this cuts against the grain of what most programmers love. They love a box of Legos. They love to put everything together from scratch. They love to make all these detailed little decisions that just don't matter at all. And I want to elevate that up such that, hey, I'm not trying to take the decisions away from you. I just want you to focus on decisions that actually matter, that you truly care about. No one cares about whether it's post_ID or post-ID or PID.
Yeah, great defaults.
Yes.
It's just a wonderful thing. You have all these aspirations. They're going to do some kind of custom, most beautiful Legos castle that nobody's ever built from these pieces. But in reality, to be productive in most situations, you just need to build the basic thing. And then on top of that is where your creativity comes.
Absolutely. And I think this is one of those part of the doctrine that a lot of programmers who get to use Ruby on Rails begrudgingly will acknowledge it's a nice thing, even if they don't really like it. Like, it's hard to beat the sort of attraction to building with Legos from scratch out of programmers. That's just what we like. This is why we're programmers in the first place, because we'd like to put these little pieces together. But we can direct that instinct towards a more productive end of the stack.
Okay, what are some of the other ones?
The menu is omakase. It actually comes out of the same principle that great defaults really matter. If you look at everything that's wrong with the JavaScript ecosystem right now, for example, it is that no one is in charge of the menu. There are a billion different dishes, and you can configure just your tailored, specific configuration of it, but no one done the work to make sure it all fits together. So you have all these unique problems in the JavaScript ecosystem. For example, there's probably 25 major ways of just doing the controller layer. And then as many of how to talk to the database. So you get this permutation of n times n times n of no one is using the same thing. And if they are using the same thing, they're only using the same thing for about 5 minutes. So we have no retained wisdom. We build up no durable skills. Rails goes the complete opposite way of saying, do you know what? Rails is not just a web framework. It is a complete attempt at solving the web problem. It's a complete attempt at solving everything you need to build a great web application. And every piece of that puzzle should ideally be in the box, pre-configured, pre-assembled. If you want to change some of those pieces later, that's wonderful. But on day one, you'll get a full menu designed by a chef who really cared about every piece of the ingredient, and you're going to enjoy it. And that's, again, one of those things where many programmers think, like, I know better. And they do in some hyper local sense of it. Every programmer knows better. This is what Ruby is built on, that every programmer knows better in their specific situation. Maybe they can do something dangerous. Maybe they think they know better and then they blow their foot off. And then they truly will know better because they've blown their foot off once and won't do it again. But the menu is omakase is that.
So you, in general, see the value in the monolith.
Yes. The integrated system.
Integrated
that
system.
Someone thought of the whole problem. This is one of the reasons why I've been on a crusade against microservices since the term was coined. Microservices was born out of essentially a good idea. What do you do at Netflix scale when you have thousands of engineers working on millions of lines of code? No one can keep that entire system in their head at one time. You have to break it down. Microservices can be a reasonable way to do that when you're at Netflix scale. When you apply that pattern to a team of 20 programmers working on a code base of 500,000 lines of code, you're an idiot. You just don't need to turn method invocations into network calls. It is the first rule of distributed programming. Do not distribute your programming. Makes everything harder. All the failure conditions you have to consider as a programmer just becomes infinitely harder when there's a network cable involved. So I hate the idea of premature decomposition. And microservices is exactly that. The monolith says, let's try to focus on building a whole system that a single human can actually understand and push that paradigm as far as possible by compressing all the concepts such that more of it will fit into memory of a single operating human. And then we can have a system where I can actually understand all of Basecamp. I can actually understand all of Hey. Both of those systems are just over 100,000 lines of code. I've seen people do this at maybe twice, maybe 3 times that scale, and then it starts breaking down. Once you get north of certainly 500,000 lines of code, no individual human can do it. And that's when you get into maybe some degree of microservices can make sense.
Basecamp and Hey are both 100,000?
100,000 lines of code.
Wow, that's small.
It is. Considering the fact that Basecamp, I think, has something like 420 screens, different ways and configurations.
Do you include the front end in that?
No, that's the Ruby code. Well, it's front end in the sense that some of that Ruby code is beneficial to the front end, but it's not JavaScript, for example. Now, the other thing we might talk about later is we write very little JavaScript, actually, for all of our applications. Hey, which is a Gmail competitor, Gmail ships, I think, 28 megabytes of uncompressed JavaScript. If you compress it, I think it's about 6 megabytes, 28 megabytes. Think about how many lines of code that is. When Hey launched, we shipped 40 kilobytes. It's trying to solve the same problem. You can solve the email client problem with either 28 megabytes of uncompressed JavaScript or with 40 kilobytes if you do things differently.
Yeah.
But that comes to the same problem, essentially. This is why I have fiercely fought splitting front end and back end apart. That, in my opinion, this was one of the great crimes against web development that we are still atoning for, that we separated and divided what was and should be a unified problem-solving mechanism. When you are working both on front end and back end, you understand the whole system. And you're not going to get into these camps that decompose and eventually you end up with shit like GraphQL.
Okay.